Joining me now is NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel in Tel Aviv. So, Richard, what are the chances we're going to see more hostages released today? Is the truce in the fighting overall still holding?
I think it is likely that we're going to see more hostages released today, probably more tomorrow as well. No indications at this stage that there has been any snag in the deal. The real question is what happens after that. We don't know if these efforts in Doha are going to lead to some sort of off-ramp. That's why the Qataris are there. That's why the CIA director is there, the chief of Mossad. I've been speaking to some of the people directly involved in those talks, and they say that so far they are not having a breakthrough. What Israel says is that it is allowing these strategic pauses, these tactical breaks to proceed as long as Hamas continues to release hostages. But that as soon as that is over, or if Hamas chooses not to release any more hostages, and the Qataris are saying that Hamas may soon be running out of women and children, and Hamas is reluctant to give up what it considers Israeli soldiers, that is, military-aged men and women, then Israel will once again resume its bombing campaign in order to destroy Hamas and try and pressure Hamas, at the very least, to release more hostages. And as these hostages, Andrea, you were talking about it earlier, talking about Abigail Edan and other hostages are released, we're learning a lot more about what their experiences are and how terrifying and horrific this entire ordeal has been for these families. I just returned here in Tel Aviv from what's now called Hostage Square. It's a square right in front of the Art Museum, and people go there to show solidarity to the hostages. There's a table set up waiting for the hostages in case one day they return. It's a symbolic artistic exhibit, but the idea is that in case they return, they have a place to sit and a meal waiting for them. There was plastic food and wine bottles on the table, different art exhibits, including dolls that are bound and wearing blindfolds. So this whole country is feeling this hostage experience. And you speak more and more to these families, and you realize how terrifying this possible was. You mentioned Abigail Edan. She's out. She's 4 years old, turned 4 in Gaza. I spoke to her aunt yesterday, and she described a little bit about what her experience was like. And on the back end, I'll tell you a part of the story that hasn't been out in the media yet, also about the same family.
We're protecting her, and a lot of love and a lot of care. And it's what she needs right now. She's only 4, and she's been through hell. She needs quiet now and to heal from everything she's been through. So
Abigail was in her house. Her parents were killed when Hamas came at 6:30 in the morning on October 7th, when the about 1,500 militants, maybe 2,000 militants, broke through the fences in Gaza and went into the nearby kibbutzes. They killed her family. She escaped the house and was taken in by neighbors. Then all of the neighbors were kidnapped, and ultimately Abigail was released as part of this swap. What hasn't been discussed as much is Abigail had or has 2 siblings, 2 older siblings, and they were in the house. And they were in the house while the parents were killed, while Abigail escaped to the neighbor's house, and they hid in a closet. And Hamas was in the house, speaking Hebrew, dressed as Israeli soldiers, saying, "Come out, we're looking for you." So imagine these 2 children hiding in a closet as Hamas gunmen who've just murdered their parents are going room to room, calling for them to come out. And they stayed there without uttering a sound for 14 hours until they were recovered by Israeli troops. I've tried to play the silent game with my 4-year-old. He lasts 30 seconds, a minute. I think most parents will have a similar experience. They stayed silent in panic for 14 hours until they were rescued, going to the bathroom on themselves, too afraid to leave the spot where they were hiding. So, and that's just one of so many stories and these are survivors, let alone the people who are still in Gaza right now.
Richard, I'm almost speechless. with that story. That is just horrible to contemplate. The effect on those children, and then 50 days without their sister, not knowing if she's alive or dead. Thank you for sharing.
And absolutely.
No, go ahead, Richard.
No, I was just saying, yes, the impact on the families themselves. We met another family today, because each time there is a release, wonderful news, we all celebrate them. Great, another group of hostages has been released. But in every case, there are people who are being left behind. So the families are being taken out. They're being taken to hospitals generally, where they can have a little bit of privacy. By the way, the hospitals have improved their food. They brought in special chefs for the people who are staying there, so to try and give them a little bit of a sense of normalcy and make them a little bit more comfortable. But how can they possibly react and recover knowing that their husbands, their brothers, their sons, in some cases, are still exactly where they left them, in Gaza?
Richard Engel, extraordinary reporting. Thank you. And joining us now is the Jerusalem Post editor-in-chief, Avi Meir. Avi, we now have a new video statement from Anana Gomez, the mother of Yagil and Or Yaakov, who were released just yesterday. I think these are the twins, the young twins, their father remaining in captivity. Let's play that.
I can't even start to explain how it feels to have them back here. It feels like the end of a bad dream, and we can finally start our lives together. But it's not over until it's over. There are still so many hostages left behind, including their father Yair, who is still held hostage in Gaza.
These are brothers, not twins, 12 and 16-year-olds. And, their mother is grieving, of course, for her husband. I mean, it's all unspeakable.
It really is unspeakable. And as I was listening to Richard's account, it reminds me that this is a country that is still very much in a state of trauma. We haven't moved to the state of post-trauma because we keep hearing more and more stories about what transpired that day on October the 7th, that day of the horrific massacre. And every day reveals more stories, more details of those atrocities. And the fact that there are families that are still torn apart, that there are individuals who don't know whether their loved ones are alive or dead in Hamas captivity. This is a country that is still very, very much embroiled in the trauma of that day, and that will likely continue to be true for quite a long time.
As you know, we've been covering a lot about the civilian casualties on both sides here. I witnessed the Israeli video that a number of senators saw today. I saw it 2 weeks ago, I think. And so there is no excuse for violence of this kind in either place. But what are we learning about the conditions that the hostages were held in tunnels and darkness? What more do you know that you can share?
Well, speaking of that video, we heard an account today from the family of one of the children who was held by Hamas that they were forced to watch that video. The Hamas forced them to watch the atrocities that took place that day. And when they started crying, they put rifle butts in their faces. We understand that many of these children emerged malnourished, pale. They'd been kept underground or in confined spaces for a long time. We know that at least one 84-year-old woman was in very serious condition. She was taken to hospital and has been there ever since. These are not humane conditions. We have to understand this is a terrorist organization that massacred 1,200 people in one day. And so all we have to do at this point is do whatever we can to get those hostages out of Gaza and back home.
And do you think that there's any chance, Bill Burns, as you know, is in Doha now with the head of Mossad, the Qatari officials. Could there be an extension, a further extension, even after all the hostages? Let's assume the great news that all the hostages get out, including, I understand, he's trying to fight for the IDF personnel as well, for the men and all the IDF members as well, men and women. But if that even were possible, could you imagine a scenario where there would be a continuing ceasefire?
I think Israel will keep the pause going so long as it can ensure that its men and women, its children, its elderly are indeed being brought home. There's a great deal of pressure within Israel for the government to engage in those negotiations to see how many of those hostages can indeed be brought home. But there's a question to be asked about how many Hamas can actually produce. We understand that several other terrorist groups in Gaza are holding some number of those hostages, including this infant, this 10-month-old, whose name is Kfir Bibas, and his mother and toddler brother. We understand, are being held by another group. We don't know if Hamas can even produce them. And so there is a great deal of pressure within Israel to ensure that as many of those hostages are indeed brought home. I hope that we do.